no pen, look more, no hands, look more, no frame, no shame. Numb me up like cocaine, can't focus, shaky can. Which moment makes a man? 'Cause I'm hoping it just begins.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Robert Groves, your host for the Groves Connection podcast. The Groves Connection brings you intimate conversations with pundits, providers, patients, leaders, and laypeople, all to help us understand a contradiction. How can our healthcare system be both magnificent and yet so deeply flawed? We're going inside healthcare to talk candidly with those who know. What they have to say may delight, surprise, frustrate, or at times even anger you. But I invite you to get curious and listen to the truth about healthcare and those who want to fix it. Maybe the answers have been there all along. We just need to make the connection. Are you ready to connect? Amy Van Dyken, welcome to the Groves Connection.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is really cool. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie, but we'll have a good time.
That sounds great. And I'm the one who should be nervous, but let's take this one step at a time and see where it takes us. First of all, I want to say that I'm really indebted to Dr. Stroman for connecting us after I interviewed her on one of the more recent podcasts. She's an amazing physician and an amazing person, and it's a delight that she was connected to you, because I never dreamed that I would be able to get an Olympian on my show, and here you are. How many gold medals do you have to your name now?
I've got 6 gold medals, and I'm actually the first American woman to win 4 gold medals in a single Olympics.
Yes.
It's never been beaten. It's been tied a few times. It's probably going to be beaten in Paris, hopefully, because I want to be there.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got that distinction, and I'm the only American female to ever win the 50-meter freestyle. So.
And I don't think you've ever won anything besides a gold, have you?
But see, here's why. I am not a smart person. So if you give me more than one color, I get very confused. So, they were very kind.
It had to be that way. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
You know, what I would love to do is explore first your back, where you grew up. Where did you grow up? How did you become an Olympian? But let's start in very young. Let's start in grade school. I mean, what were your interests then? What were you thinking? What was family life like?
Oh my gosh, family life was awesome. We always had that. We were outside to play all the time until the street lights came on, or until mom had this bell that she would ring. And then all the kids would come running because everyone's bell sounded the same, right? So
Yes.
Had a great childhood. It was amazing. Mom and dad. I had a younger sister who is 6 years younger than me, and a younger brother who is 7.5 years younger. So I have oldest child and only child syndrome, which
that might have something
special.
to do with it. Yes, we are special. Yes.
We are very special. So
So
I
where
grew
was
up.
this? Where is this now?
This was in Inglewood, Colorado.
Oh,
And
yes.
we lived in a great little neighborhood called Willow Creek. And I miss it so much because our house backed up to a green belt. So we would go out and catch crawdads every day, and we'd mark them with, nail polish to see if we ever found them again. And so it was really fun. I walked to school, which was great. And that neighborhood is where I started swimming, because there was 2 swimming pools. And that's what everybody did all summer, because it's in Colorado. So we don't have summer all year round like I do here in Arizona. So you really relished it. And that's what kids did. And that's what I did.
Did you start swimming on swim teams? I remember when I was a kid, they had swim teams for even not toddler, but very young ages.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. And, it wasn't because I wanted to be an Olympic swimmer or be a swimmer at all. I grew up with severe asthma, and I've got severe asthma. I've got all 3 types of asthma. So if I quote unquote outgrow it, it's not going to be all of them. It'll be one, one part of it. So, I grew up with that, and my life was kind of different in the fact that I couldn't go to friends' houses to spend the night because there would be allergens and I would end up in the hospital, right? So my house was the cool house because we had a walkout basement, and I just remember one day, it was like first grade, right? And I went to school and everyone was inside for recess because I think it was a blizzard. And finally, one of my friends who I actually had a crush on, Timmy Harper,
Yeah.
he's now a mounted police officer up in Canada. Hi, Timmy Harper. He actually asked me, he's like, why are you just so weird? And I'm like, well, where do you want to start, Timmy Harper?
Yeah.
But he was asking about my breathing. And I remember going home and being so upset because that was the first time I realized that I really wasn't like everybody else.
Yeah.
So my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, listen, we hear water sports are great for asthmatics. Get involved. Right? Because it
As a
helps with
pulmonologist, I did that, immediately made that connection. Yes.
us as asthmatics. We feel like we can't get air in, but it's actually we can't get air out. So if your
Yeah.
face is underwater, you're getting that air out, right? So that's kind of how I explain it to people, and it kind of helps control your breathing. But the problem is I'm also allergic to chlorine.
That makes it a challenge.
You know, when I was training for the Olympics, I would have an inhaler at each end of the swimming pool just in case. Doors were always open,
my
fans
goodness.
were going. Yeah, it was dramatic. But let's go back to when I was 6. I was 6 years old and I started swim team, diving team, and synchro team, right? And
Yeah.
diving team wasn't for me. I'm like, you want me to flip in the air? No. And I'm afraid of heights. So no.
Yeah.
Synchro I loved, but I just couldn't get the body positions right.
Right. Yeah.
And then swimming, I just fell in love with. This is so funny. I tell people this and they're like, what? And I actually have video evidence if we can find a beta machine somewhere in the universe.
Oh my
I'm aging
gosh.
myself.
That takes
I'm
me
aging
back.
myself.
Yeah.
That totally does, doesn't it? But yeah, so, you know, I finished my first leg of the pool and I was 12 years old.
Oh my
And
goodness.
at that moment, everyone was clapping for me, you know, because they were happy that I actually finished. I didn't have to be yanked out of the pool. And I told my dad, next time I swim, I'm going to win. Thought I was crazy. And when I was 13 years old, I won my very first blue ribbon.
Is that right? And so what did you do to get ready for that? I mean, you're a kid. I mean, did you focus? Did you have drills? I mean, what did you do?
So, you know, I would go to practice every day and I would just try to get better. But one thing that I learned early on in my career, if you will, was visualization. And I use it even to this day. So when I was a kid, you know, and I don't remember if it was my mom that was talking to me about it, but she would say, before you go to bed, you know, think about how fast you want to go and what you want to do. And so I did. And it got to the point later in my career where I was getting ready for the games. And even at games that I had never been at, I could picture in my mind what it was going to look like, smell like, taste like, feel like, sound like. And I would make a race go perfect. I would make a race where I false started. I would make a race where I missed a turn so that everything went wrong and my mind was already ready for it. So
Interesting. Yeah.
huge into visualization and always did that. And I think that's what helped me. My dad claims it's because I watched Rocky IV.
You were inspired by Rocky IV.
Apparently, I don't think that was it.
Yeah. No, the visualization thing is very interesting because on its surface, it sounds kind of woo-woo. But I don't know many athletes that have accomplished great things in their sport that haven't used that or don't use it today. I mean, it really is very common for athletes, high-level athletes, to use that strategy.
It really is, because we can put ourselves, you know, and I'm sure that this is, you know, what you've done as well, is you put yourself in situations that are awful, that if they happened in real life in a race, you would literally panic.
Yeah.
So you put yourself in that situation in your mind, and it's almost like your mind doesn't know that you didn't really do it. So it's like, oh, we've done this before, let's do it again. And this is how we did it.
Yeah.
And it is a really cool thing. And here's what's really crazy. So as I got later in my career and I was in college, I wanted to break the American record. So for 50 meters, I wanted to go 21.7. So I put sticky notes everywhere. My roommates were they couldn't stand it, but 21.7 everywhere. And my time when I went to the NCAAs in 1994 was 21.77.
Oh my gosh. How
And I broke the American record.
remarkable. Yeah, that really is remarkable. So when did you start seriously training, and what did that look like?
I started what I thought was serious training my senior year of high school, because I knew the only way I could get to college was to get a scholarship. So
Gotcha.
I knew I had to do something. I started training twice a day. I would go into the pool for an hour and a half before school. And then after school, I would go in for 2 hours and train, and then go home and eat and try to do homework and then pass out and do it all again. And
Yeah.
that's, it becomes a job. And I just, decided that if this is what I'm going to do, I have to take it very seriously.
When did you know that you had the potential to get to the Olympics? I mean, that seems like such a high bar.
I think it was probably my senior year in high school. I qualified for the 92 Olympic trials at our state high school swim meet. And I was like, maybe I could go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started taking it seriously.
I'll be darned. So the year that you really started seriously training, you found out that you potentially had the ability to make that team. And what does that look like if somebody's trying to make the Olympic team? How does that work?
So are you talking about the training or like the process to get to the Olympics? Like,
What's the process? I mean, how do you get picked and noticed and whatever else?
well, and this is kind of how you tell someone who's making up a little lie, because we don't have a selection process in swimming. So I've heard so many times people go, yeah, I was picked to do the relay. And I'm like, no, you weren't.
Yeah.
You go to swim meets and you have to hit a certain time criteria in order to make the Olympic trials swim meet. Once you make that criteria, then you send in documentation and you get to go to the Olympic trials. You're at the Olympic trials. After the morning swim, you have to be top 8. In order to make
Gotcha.
the Olympic team, you have to win.
Oh, wow.
That's how you make it. There are
Yeah.
other ways, right? So if you swim the 100 freestyle or the 200 freestyle, the top 4 will automatically be picked. The reason is they need a relay. So they
Gotcha.
pick those top 4. Then if certain people start making more than one event, then they'll start picking number 2 in the events, like the 50 free, the 100 butterfly. And then that's how they make a team. It's cool. They'll never
Gotcha.
go below second place. So literally you have to win or get second place in the country in order to go to the Olympics.
Wow, that is a high bar. So tell me about during this process, where did school fit in?
School. I remember that.
Yeah.
So like when I was a high schooler, it was easy, right? Because it was all in the same building and it was just easy. All your friends were going to class. Now you get to college and it becomes a little more difficult because now you're on your own for the first time. So you're learning how to be an adult human being. You've got all these other distractions going on, plus school, plus swimming. So basically what we did was, you wake up in the morning and again, we swim 2 hours. This is as we got progressed. We would be in the weight room for an hour and a half and then swimming again after all of that for another 2 hours. So
Gotcha.
school fit in anytime after morning practice, before evening practice, or after evening practice. So there was just a very small little time window. So that's why athletes get to pick their classes first.
Gotcha.
Because we really are limited in when we can take our classes. I know people got a little upset at that. Not that I would rub that in their face ever. I would never ever do anything. But so that's how we did it. And then after practice, if you didn't have a class, there were study tables that you had to go to.
Okay.
And so you would be there and they would know that you were studying and your coach would get your attendance on study tables and all of that. And
Yeah. And where was this that you were going to school now?
so I went to the University of Arizona for my first 2.5 years.
Gotcha.
Then I transferred and went to Colorado State. And I ended up finishing up there. It was
so
awesome.
you went up to Fort Collins, is that right? That's where,
I did for fun. Have you been?
Oh, yes. I used to, I lived for a time in Greeley and then down near the Denver Tech Center for a while. Spent about 12 years. I loved Colorado. I absolutely loved my time there.
It's different, right? Like Fort Collins is
Yes.
definitely a college town.
Yes.
And I love the energy. If I were to move back to Colorado, I would either move to Boulder or to Fort Collins.
Yeah.
The reason being both of those are college towns and both amazing towns. Both offer something completely different.
It brings a lot of culture into the community that otherwise wouldn't be there. It really does.
Absolutely, yes. And I'll tell you what, you walk around there and you just feel energized by these kids.
The other thing that I'm really curious about is what you were studying and what you thought. I mean, did you think this was a career, swimming, or what were you thinking after I win 4 gold medals and, knock everybody back on their rockers. What am I going to do then?
So that was interesting because I am very dyslexic. I
Oh,
don't, not only do I have letter number reversal, but I also do not have phonics at all. And
wow.
so even though I know a word, I know the definition, I can't read it. So it would cause a lot of problems in my comprehension. And so through that, I knew I had to do something that didn't require a lot of foreign language. But when I went to the
Gotcha.
University of Arizona, I still needed a year of foreign language.
Oof.
They told me that sign language is considered a foreign language. So I took sign language. So my ultimate goal was I wanted to teach high school biology students in the deaf community.
That's very cool. It turns out that I have, first of all, I was born pretty hard of hearing. I've got hearing aids on both sides. And my family had American Sign Language deafness. In other words, not my immediate family, but yes. And unfortunately, I never learned it. I really wish that I had, because I'm deaf enough now. I'd like to use it with my wife. It's really hard sometimes to understand. She tells me that
Sure,
that's a good thing, that,
it is anyway, because if you're like me and you've been married so long, that tone of that other human's voice, all of a sudden you lose that tone.
oh, yeah, it disappears into the
It, does-
background noise, right?
it does.
But that's really cool are you still able to sign? Do you still do it now, or?
I know some signs enough to get me by, but not like I did.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
really breaks my heart. And they do say if you don't use it, you lose it. And
Yes. I
it's
mean, it's
so
like
spot
any
on.
language. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm telling you, you guys, if people who are watching / listening, if you take a foreign language, please stay with it, because you will lose it within a year. And all of that studying is just,
It really is. And I made the mistake of hopping around too much. I took German and French and Spanish, and now I don't know where words come from, and I can't remember any of them well enough to communicate. But
I took German as well. And I've got a friend who lives in Germany, and I used my German on him. And what he told me, I said, I will not repeat, because it was not, I thought I was saying something very lovely, and apparently it was not. So
not lovely, not lovely.
we'll
Yes,
move on from that.
it is easy to make those kinds of mistakes in foreign
It's so
languages.
sad.
So we've got your career path that you had thought you had lined out for yourself. We've got you now getting ready to go to the Olympics.
Right.
So was there a moment that was just surreal after you realized that you were actually going to go to the Olympics? What did that feel like?
It was so crazy, because it was something that from the time I was 6, right, was in my body somewhere, because I obviously had some sort of talent. It was obviously in my brain somewhere, right? So this had
Yeah.
been cultivated for so long. And so the thing that's cool is that I made it at the University of Indiana, and they had a big, huge wall, and they would write every person's name who made the Olympic team on the wall. And in
Wow.
1996, I am the second woman on there.
Wow.
Even to this day, to look at it, just surreal. I got chills. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is like, I'm going to be a Matt Biondi or a Janet Evans that I had watched when I was a kid and said, I
Yeah.
want to do that someday, right? And
Yeah.
so here I was, and it was amazing. And then to find out my teammate was Janet Evans, right? Who had gone to the Olympics since I think they started. And this was
Yeah.
her last games. It was my first games. She's only a year older. And so the things I learned from her were just spectacular. But the thing that really hit me was when I got the uniform, because now you've got this American flag on your cap with your last name on it, and an
Oh my
American flag
gosh.
on your chest. And you're like, this is real.
Indeed. I should be a lot more aware, but where were the Olympics that first year that you?
They were in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, there was a lot that went on there.
A
I remember,
lot that
wasn't
went
there?
on there.
That was the bombing, and yes.
Yeah. And my parents, because it was the night that I broke history, became the first American woman ever to win
Yeah.
4 golds. So my parents have a USA Today that was run before the bombing, which was me doing and it said forever gold.
Yeah.
And then they got the actual run of the USA Today, which was bombing, bombing, bombing. Little
Oh,
note down here, by the way, Amy made history. So it just kind of shows you how it really did shape those Olympics.
yeah.
And it was the last night of swimming. I was supposed to go to like a celebration party with myself and Michael Johnson and Dan O'Brien, names from the past, right?
Yeah.
And I decided I was going to go and change. So I went back to the village and I went to McDonald's because I was hungry. And I was talking to the security guards, and they started everything started squawking and beeping and buzzing. And they were like, Amy, go to your dorm room right now. And I remember we all had pagers. This was pre-cell phone. And we were paging everybody where to go because they weren't letting anybody else back in the Olympic Village. So there I was with the team managers. We were like the only people that were still there because everyone else dispersed from swimming to go to parties and see their parents and all the things. So we're trying to get them all back. And it was really scary because we didn't know if something else was going to happen. We knew that, speaking of Janet Evans, we knew she was in Olympic Park doing interviews. So we were worried for her. Again, it was so scary. But yeah, a lot of things happened during those games.
Before that experience, talk to us a little bit about what it's like to be in the Olympic Village as an athlete.
I don't know if you want to know. The rumors are true. So yeah, the Olympic Village, though, is really, really cool because everyone has their own building, whatever kind of building it was. In Atlanta, we had dorm buildings, right? So it was a high rise. And then in Australia, which was my last Olympics, they were like houses. So me and my roommate were living in the garage.
Okay.
Which they did really nicely. But everyone's got like an American flag if they're the American house, or they've got the Jamaican flag if they're
right.
So you walk through and you see all of these different flags, and then you see all the athletes, and you're talking to everybody, and everybody's trading, memorabilia, and everyone's signing autographs and taking pictures. And it really is a special thing because you understand that person that you're talking to has just done something amazing. But you have too in order to be talking to them. So it's just such a crazy, crazy deal. It really is. But I will say when the sun goes down and the lights go off, get into your room, hide, close your eyes. No, it's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it is fun. And, you do have all these athletes who are there who are in the peak of their physicality, and so sometimes
and they're ready to bust out, I'm sure, particularly after their event is done.
Yes, and that's why they have all these parties, and it's just it really is fun. It's a wonderful atmosphere. I would do it again in a heartbeat. But you've got it's also what people don't understand. The Olympic Village that is secure is its own city. It actually, I believe, has its own zip code during the games. And we've got a grocery store. We've got McDonald's everywhere. We have got, in 96, we got a coin that we would put in Coke machines and get anything you wanted, and then it would pop back out. And so you could just do it over and over.
So a reusable coin.
A reusable coin, And then we've got barber shops in there. We've got beauty salons that you can get your hair done, your nails done. You can get a facial and massage.
That is crazy. It really is. But I tell you what, everybody there has worked their tail off to get there. So more power to you. I mean, that's earned it. Is basically how I feel about that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I earned that coin that comes back out.
And that reusable coin. Yeah,
that's right.
So after that Olympics, what were you thinking? Did you think you'd come back again? Could you not resist it? Or
at first, I thought I wasn't going to come back. Because I was traveling so much, doing all the the Wheaties box, the milk ad, the things everywhere. And I wasn't home at all. And so I just thought, I can't train. I'm losing all my muscle because I lose weight really quickly. And so I just didn't think I could do it. And then I went to an event, and actually it was for my sister. My sister went to a conference swim meet, and I was there. And I remember I went up to my college coach, John Matos, who was coaching Colorado State. I said, hey, John, I have a question. Do you think that you could train me for 2000? And he was like, I think we can get you ready. Let's go. And that's when it was, when I saw my baby sister swimming.
Oh, that is a great story. So did you believe that you were going to get gold again in the second time around? Or
I didn't think I was going to make the team. I had 2 shoulder surgeries that were supposed to end my career, right? I tore my labrum, and I tore it pretty good. Yeah. And because if you think about it, right, so it was a pitcher's injury. So I'm a sprinter. So what a pitcher does is basically how we pull through the water, right? We put that same amount of torque. Now a pitcher may throw 100 balls in a game. How many of those are fastballs? Let's say 70%, right? But every single stroke that I take puts that same torque on it. And so we tear labrums a lot. And so I ended up tearing my labrum, and I didn't get it fixed right away. So my whole capsule had, stretched out.
Scarred
So,
up. Yeah.
yeah. So I had that thermocapsular reduction they were doing back in the day, and they repaired my labrum. And then 18 months later, I got back in the pool, re-injured myself. So 6 months to the day of Olympic trials starting, I had my second shoulder surgery, and everyone was like, "You're done." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." So I went back to trials, and I didn't think I was going to make the team in anything. And the fact that I did, and I swam 3 races and got 2 gold medals, was beyond anything I could have imagined.
That is incredible. That really is. That is, I don't know if it's grit, guts, or what you call that, but that's, after those kinds of injuries, coming back after that is not an easy task.
It's called stupidity is what it's called.
Is your shoulder, how is your shoulder work today?
It's perfect. And the thing that's crazy is I now live life in a wheelchair. So I use my arms a lot, and the shoulder is held up great.
What I was thinking is, wow, if you've got a chronic injury there, that would be a problem, wouldn't it? Well, we hadn't gotten to the part where the accident that put you in the wheelchair. And I do want to talk about that and your experiences afterwards, if you're open to that.
Absolutely.
After the second Olympics, what was what were you doing, and how long did you do it, and what were you thinking before the accident?
So after the games, I knew I was done. So I went back to Colorado and got engaged to a man who was playing for the Denver Broncos. Number 16 in your program, number 1 in your heart. And so I was actually doing some TV work back then, and some radio work,
that kind of thing, or
no, at that time I was doing more like in-depth stories packages.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I did one. It was a 6-part series on drugs and sports. A lethal combination is what it was called. So we looked at from professional athletes all the way down to elementary school kids, and it was heartbreaking.
Wow.
So I did things like that, and I loved it. Loved it.
Elementary school kids? No kidding?
Mm-hmm. It was awful to hear these stories. Yeah.
And is that because there's so much pressure to perform even at that age?
Correct. And you will find it a lot in situations like mine, where you couldn't go to college unless you get a scholarship. So you get a scholarship.
Gotcha.
And it was just heartbreaking. The whole thing was up for an Emmy for that year. So it was cool to have that. But, so I loved doing that. But then I kind of fell into, at the same time, doing sports radio.
Yeah.
And I was the sideline reporter for the Broncos, which my husband was playing for the Broncos at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really weird. I had to report on my husband. But so I did that. And then I started doing the NFL on Fox games.
Gotcha.
And so when I first started doing the Seahawks, no one really knew who I was, because we came from the Broncos and whatever. And
right.
So after the pregame warm-up, the guys went into the locker room and they were talking about that cute new sideline reporter. So they were all taking bets as to who was going to take me home.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
So my husband goes, "I will bet each of you in here $100 that I take her home tonight." I'm like, "Whatever, ruined. Forget you."
Oh, my gosh.
All these, you never. So that night, we're done with the game. He's all cleaned up. I've done my stuff. And he's like, "Let's go to the team meal." I'm like, "You never want to go to the team meal. What's going on?" He's like, "Let's just go."
Yes.
All of a sudden I hear Tommy whistles, and everyone turns around, and the team, "No way, Ruin, no way." And he's like, "By the way, guys, I want you to meet my wife, Amy."
I love that story. Oh, that's dastardly. That really is dastardly.
But we got free dinner for the whole season. It was great. It was awesome.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, I did that. And then when he was done, I got into morning radio, like that morning shock jock stuff. And I found that I really... Oh,
well, you're a natural. That's obvious from the moment I started talking to you. I mean, you know how to do this stuff. You know how to talk and keep things interesting, and it just seems to flow. I mean, has that always been there?
Yes. My mom is like, "You're going to be a performer when you grow up," and I'm like, "I am not. I'm going to be a veterinarian. I'm going to save all the animals."
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah. No, you're obviously a natural. So,
thank you.
So were you doing morning radio when the accident occurred? Walk us through that timeline. What happened? And
so I was actually at the time I was working for Fox.
Okay.
And I was doing the Olympics for 2012, the London Olympics. I was fronting a whole bunch of shows. And then I was on set at the Olympics. At the same time, I was on Fox Sports Radio. What was really cool is, yes, we were nationwide. Yes, we were on Sirius XM. I was the only female voice. Aside from, we had Deb Carson who would read the news, but I was the only female voice on that network.
Wow.
That was on a show. And I was working with a great guy, Rob Dibble, who was a pitcher back in the day, Cincinnati Reds. He was one of the nasty boys. He's just fabulous. And that's when I got hurt, was right when we were doing that.
Tell us, if you know, whatever you're willing to tell us about how that occurred. I don't want to walk you through things that are unnecessarily painful, but
Oh, no, it's totally fine. So it was June 6th of 2014. And my husband and I had taken a vacation, and we had a house in the mountains in Arizona. So we went up there, and it's a golf course community. So, you know, once the gates close behind you, you park your car, and then, you know, you take whatever golf cart or a hoverboard or ATV motorcycle to get around, right?
Yep.
And so that morning, I went to CrossFit. That's what I do. And I met the guy who owned the gym, and he was telling me how he's a firefighter and all the things. I'm like, okay, DJ, I'll see you later. I remember I went home, and later in the day, we were deciding where we were going to go for dinner.
Right.
And we decided we were going to go to a place that was kind of close by. It was like a quarter of a mile away. We've walked there 1,000 times. We could have walked there that night.
Yeah.
And my husband, Tom, was like, why don't we take the truck? And I'm like, babe, we've been living in LA, and no offense to people who live in LA, but I was like, I want fresh air to breathe in. Like, I want to take my ATV, you take your motorcycle. And he's like, okay, fine. So we did, and we had dinner. And as soon as dinner was over, he would normally get on his motorcycle and take off in front of me. But had he done that this night, I wouldn't be here because he wouldn't have found me. So he said, babe, go ahead. I'll see you at home. We were going to go home, watch Game of Thrones. So I started off ahead, and he said he looked up and he was like, what the hell is she doing? He said there wasn't an arm movement. There wasn't a screech. There wasn't a flicker of a brake light. I hit a curb and went over a 6-foot cliff.
Wow.
And I don't remember anything from the time I pushed my chair in at dinner, and I'm thankful. When he ran over and looked down, I was face down, and he could see my back was broken. So he got down there. He was yelling for someone. There was a guy who had been at dinner who was a doctor, but apparently he had been drinking, so he didn't want to get near me, which was fine. I get it. So he called 911. 911 went to a firefighter station, and the guy was like, listen, we're calling in Flight for Life. All they heard was it was a head injury. They didn't know it was a back injury at all.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because when my husband had rolled me over and I wasn't breathing, he lifted up my neck, and I started convulsing, and my eyes were going two different directions for a long time. And like I would say the same thing over and over and over. So anyway, Flight for Life gets there. My first responder gets there, who happened to be the guy that owned that CrossFit gym that I worked out at that morning.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And they put me in Flight for Life, and he told my husband, he's like, just be prepared. She probably won't remember you. Because they thought they weren't even worried about my back. They were worried about my head.
Huh. Okay.
And my doctor says that once he got my scans, he shut down that trauma center and any trauma center he could have been called to. So of course I go, why? Was it because I won gold medals? And he's like, no, honey, it was really bad. Right.
Yeah, no, that had nothing to do with it. I'm guessing he knew he was going to be there for a while.
Not a thing. And when you look at the x-rays, it wasn't good. So had I been moved wrong or whatever, I actually would have punctured my aorta. He said he was working in nanometers, wasn't sure he would get me out. Well, here we are. He's fantastic. So Dr. Toomey Allen, we love you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember waking up right before surgery, and he was like, and it was matter of fact, I'm going to try to get you out. I don't know if it's going to happen. You need to say goodbye to your husband now.
Oh my goodness.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I remember he whispered to me, he's like, if it's too much, you can let go. And I'm like, oh no, you are not getting rid of me that easily, Mr. Ruin. Forget you. So yeah, he probably
There's that
did that
fighting
knowing.
spirit, you know. So arduous rehab, and I can't remember if you were at was it Craig or Spalding or one of the
Craig, yeah.
Craig, yeah. And I used to round over there, at one point in my career, and it's a tough go. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. Now, obviously, you've got a lot of fire within you to get to where you got in the Olympics. And my guess is that's what you had to call on again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which was harder, the Olympics or?
Wow. I would say the rehab, and here's why, right? Because at the Olympics, I'm training to win a piece of metal.
Yeah.
But in rehab, I'm training to get my life back.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there was more, I guess, more at stake. So it meant a lot more to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's cool. You used to round over there. What a small world. That's cool.
I know it is. It is indeed. And so walk us through your experience of rehab. How long did it take? What were the milestones that you look back on now? And how long were you in mourning, if you were in mourning at all? And how did you get oriented for recovery, I guess is the best way to say that.
So as I said, I died a few times in this accident. And that's why I have this tattoo on my wrist, which is a phoenix rising from the ashes. And then underneath it, it's the last time when my heart rate went wonky when I passed away, and it goes into my normal sinus rhythm. So if I'm having a bad day, I can look at it and go, suck it up, buttercup. It's been worse. Right?
Yeah.
So
yes.
I think through that, somehow I knew that it was special to be around.
Yeah.
So even when I was in the ICU, I remember the nurse coming in one day when my book club was there. And she's like, Carls, this is the intensive care unit, not a sorority house. You need to be quiet.
Oh my goodness.
But I knew that I was here for a reason, and I didn't know what the reason was. And I knew that I had been sent back, if you will, right? And no matter what you believe in, right? I was sent back from good, and I was probably sent back from bad. So you come back and you go, I got to get my life together.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
I just knew that I needed to do something with this that has just been handed to me. The weird thing is when I was getting ready to get out of ICU, they put me in a wheelchair, and I felt really comfortable. It was weird. It was really weird. Like I knew how to do it. It's weird.
Yeah.
So I always felt comfortable.
Almost like a destiny thing.
Yeah.
Is that how it felt? Yeah.
Very weird. Almost like I've been here, but I don't know what people believe in, but if you believe it, like almost like it's like I've done it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is weird. But after, I want to say 3 weeks in ICU, I went to Craig Hospital, and it was awful. That first night I was crying hysterically. I was in so much pain. I had just been moved from Arizona to Colorado with a broken back, and I didn't have any family around me because all my family from Colorado is in Arizona for me. So I had nobody, and I was just really upset, and it was really hard. And I think like if you have a mourning period, I think that might have been it.
Gotcha.
Where I just lost it, and they couldn't control me. They gave me all the meds. Nothing was working. I was that jacked up.
Yeah.
But then the next morning, I was like, you know what? We've got to do this. You need to learn how to put your pants on. You need to learn how to bend over in your wheelchair. You need to learn how to drive and get your independence back. So from that moment on, I looked at it like I looked at swimming training. Every day you wake up, every day you have the same breakfast, the same lunch, the same dinner, which got annoying to the meal people, I'm sure. I'm sure they were all like, Amy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would do that. And I knew that I was there for a purpose. My family was around, my husband was around, but I really didn't focus on them. I was focusing on getting better. And it got to the point where they told me I was probably going to be there for 3 months, and they kicked me out at 2. So
good for you.
I was doing pretty
That's
well.
That's an amazing recovery. That is. It really is.
Thank you.
And I wanna go back to something you just said about having the same meal when you're in training. In this case, in training for recovery, and in the other case, in training for the Olympics. Is this the same principle that Steve Jobs used to wear exactly the same thing every day? It reduces the amount of choices you have to make, and so it allows you to focus. Is that?
It almost, for me, reduces the stress, because now I don't need to worry about what I'm going to eat. How is it going to adjust with my system? Because now I've got a new system.
Yeah.
And all of that, it just took it away because I knew.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's interesting. And what I have learned since is that a lot of high functioning people tend to do that. I'm not saying I am, but I'm saying that high functioning people tend to do that. So that is one less thing that is a worry in their world. So I guess I kind of took that on as almost like, okay, I know I need to worry about A, B, C, D through W.
Right.
I don't need this. I guess it was kind of like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was Obama, too, who wore the same suit every day or something like that.
It might have been.
To limit.
Look at me.
Limit that. What am I going to, it just takes it off the table.
I'm going to tell everybody that I know that you just equated me with Steve Jobs and President Obama, because the world is just now in a perfect place.
You feel free to do exactly that. And I hold you in equal esteem to both of those, frankly, after what you've done. I mean, seriously, you're an amazing human being to accomplish what you've accomplished, to have that kind of setback for an athlete, and then to come through it with the grace and skill that you have. Amazing job. It really is. It truly is.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
And I'm really interested in the mental piece of this. Physically, we know it dramatically changed what you can do, how quickly you can do it. There have to be accommodations. You're beholden to elevators. I think I saw at one point we were talking about the elevators in Denver, and it's like, guys, you don't understand. If this elevator doesn't work, I don't cross the street.
Right.
And so things like that, I understand, are frustrating. We can get into that in a minute. But mentally, how did it change you?
I used to be, and I still am, type A. I think you may have gotten that from some of
Got that picture, yeah.
And I used to be very on time and had to be done this way and I can't do that anymore, because now I have to kind of fly by the seat of my pants, if you will. If something happens, I need to be able to kind of adjust my world around that.
Yeah.
If an elevator's broken, I need to adjust my world. Now, when I go places, I think 3 steps ahead. Okay, what if this happens, that happens, this happens, right? So I'm almost still visualizing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So I can solve my problem, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that before. I was always a on the go, move fast, let's go, get it done type of person. And now I can't do that, because even though I do still drive a Camaro SS, which stands for super sexy. Thank you. I still drive my Camaro, but it does still take a minute to put the wheelchair in the car. So I can't do that hustle and bustle anymore.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's kind of helped mentally.
That's interesting. And I've read other accounts of folks who have been through something similar, that they almost perceived it as a message to slow down. It's like, you're going too fast. Here's a little help in slowing down.
Yeah.
The kind of help none of us wants to wish on ourselves or anybody else, but
correct,
they've turned it into something positive, or if not positive, a growth opportunity, I guess, is the way I think about it.
I think it's absolutely right. And, whenever I hear from people, that something's happened in their life and whatever, the first thing I say before I say anything is, please take care of you.
Yeah.
Right? People need to slow down and take care of themselves. Because think about this, if you've got anyone in the hospital or dealing with something, they're being taken care of, right? They've got their needs met, but you do not. So you need to take care of yourself. And I always stress that. And I hope people listen, but that's a big one for a lot of people who are caregivers. They need a break.
Yeah, you know what, Amy, that's incredibly insightful. That's the message that I used to give to families of folks that were in the ICU. It's like, we've got this. We'll call you if anything changes. But I've seen time and again families lose sleep and get sick themselves because they're so concerned about their family member. And it's not an easy thing to do. But what you bring it around home or bring it home with is, the caregiver needs to think about that too. And that's often missed for, physicians tend to be pretty driven folk, as it turns out. And so I think that's part of our burnout problem is self-management.
I do always tell you, doctors and nurses especially, and I know some nurses have told me that they do have a place where they can go and cry. But, you guys have to just, you take so much on and so much home. And so you guys are the ones that really, yes, the caregivers, but also the people who are helping the patient, need to take care of themselves, and not just physically, mentally. If you need to talk to somebody or whatever, please do it. Please do
Absolutely.
it for those of you listening.
Absolutely. That's key and critical to thriving, if not survival.
Yes, absolutely.
You've overcome this thing now to the point that you are mobile again and you're back being Amy.
Yep.
And so what did you decide to do from there?
I am going around the world trying to change the world one person at a time, right? So
good for you.
I give motivational speeches, telling people like, listen, yes, you're having a crappy day. Like, let's learn how to handle it. Don't make it a moment. Don't make it a day. Because, you don't know what's around the corner. And if you're
That's
a sourpuss, right? I don't know. I don't want on my tombstone, she was a sourpuss. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like almost like if you're in that mood and you pass away, people are going to be like, well, I was fighting with her. She was angry at blah, blah, blah. Make it a moment. And learn from the moment so that when it pops up again, you go, got this, and this is how I'm going to do it. You don't make it a day. Not worth it. So I do that. And I also, through my injury, I've got really significant neuropathic pain. Some of us do, some of us don't. And I do, from belly button to tippy toes, both sides, all over. And so when it flares up, it's bad. And so, of course, the answer to that when you're in the hospital is give you more pain meds. So I run around the country trying to tell people that there are alternatives that can help.
Yeah, talk to me about that a little bit, because obviously we've got an opioid crisis. We've got folks that don't know how to handle pain except to pop a pill. What do you do to manage that? What advice would you have for folks that have chronic pain?
I would say to find a wonderful pain management doctor that can work with you. I had seen a few, and again, the opioids just kept getting higher and higher and higher to the point where I was not myself at all. My husband was really worried.
Yeah.
And my neurosurgeon, who saved my life that night, recommended the pain management doctor I see now. And I remember going into his office that first time, right? You're meeting a doctor for the first time. You're so nervous, all the things.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's your goal? And I said, well, I want to get off this stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, I'm going to sit down for a minute. I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to understand that I've got you through this process, and I'm going to help you through this. But Oxy does not help nerve pain.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes it worse.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was on 180 milligrams twice a day.
Oh my goodness.
Here I am now. I hear this and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is this going to happen? So I got off of that, and I'm not going to say it was an easy process. And and anyone who's probably listening to this understands that process, right? So we don't need to go into it. But once I got off of them, now he does spinal injections. He does ablations on me. Then he'll do in between that, like some cortisone to kind of calm everything down.
Yes.
I do take some medicine. It still wasn't really making it go away to the point where I wasn't in pain 24/7. And so, I had heard about medical cannabis, and I was like, no. Nancy Reagan told us this is our brain on drugs. Don't do it. And I had a friend who was like, I'm going to be with you. Here we go. And I took half a gummy. I mean, tell you what, it felt like a warm wave. And for the first time, I wasn't in pain.
Wow.
Like, it was there, but it didn't really bother me.
Yeah. No, that's very cool.
Yeah. And so I just want people to understand that cannabis may not be for them, but there are other things out there besides opiates that can take care of your pain.
Yes.
But you've got to work with a doctor, do your own research, and, be your own best advocate. And that's all I can tell you. But, when you are living in constant pain, it is awful. I am there with you. So many other people are there with you, and just know that it does get better, and you can find something that will help and give you relief.
Yeah. And you have to just keep at it. I mean, sometimes it can be frustrating to find the magic formula, and it's a little bit different for everybody.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you find that, especially in our spinal cord injury community, everyone's different, even if you have the same x-ray, right?
Yeah.
So what works for me is probably not going to work for somebody else, but I can at least let them know that there is an option and to look into it. This computer is just so tired of looking up all that stuff when it was going down, right? I found what works for me, but maybe through my story, you'll hear something and it triggers in them, and they go, oh, I can get off of that too, and I want to try X, Y, and Z. So that's another thing that I'm trying to do, because I've had a lot of friends who were taking their medications as prescribed and they OD'd. I want to tell you what I was on. I mean, I was on OxyContin, I was on a muscle relaxer, and I was on 10 milligrams of Ambien.
Yeah,
I have no
that's
idea.
a lot.
It's a lot. But that's what my friends were on, the same thing, and it's just sad. So I don't want to, make it seem like, oh, ho-hum, but just research things. Do things that are better for you.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
always an alternative.
The other thing that comes to mind, and obviously it doesn't solve everything, but you have some amazing mental powers. Do you use that in pain management? How do you think about that?
In my pain management, it's very hard for me because that is probably one of the most frustrating parts of this whole endeavor for me is the pain, right? And so when it is happening and it gets really bad, sometimes that's all I can think about, and I can't make it go away. Whereas anything else, any other pain in my body, I can make it go away. I can't make it go away. So all the mental capacity that I have, it does not do anything for that. Now, I do have friends who can sit and meditate and it goes away.
Neuropathic pain is notorious for being resistant to just about everything.
It is, and sadly, we lose a lot of people that have it.
Yeah.
Because they feel hopeless and they feel helpless and they're just tired of it. I mean, it is a 24/7 thing that you're dealing with, and, that's why I want to run around the country and tell people that there are things that can make it a little better. Hang in there.
I'm so happy that you're doing that. I mean, that's an amazing way to turn what happened to you into a positive for so many other people. And that's a generous spirit that allows you to do that. And a heck of a lot of energy I can sense as well. So that's impressive. I have one last question, but healthcare is frustrating for many people because just navigating it. Do you have insights or opinions about the way the system works today and how it might work better?
Here's what I want to tell people, and I tell people all this all the time. A lot of people are talking about they want socialized medicine, right? Which on the surface, yes, it looks great. But I was talking to some of my friends in Canada, and they were like, Amy, you wouldn't even be seen yet, almost 9 years later, for your nerve pain. Well, I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
And so we need to look at that, right? Like if an older parent gets cancer, they're going to see them as terminal no matter what, and just, don't have time for them. So our system is pretty good compared to some other ones, right? It is frustrating. Doctors are overworked. Nurses are overworked. We've got a shortage. Everyone had to live through COVID that is working in the hospitals and in doctors' offices. And I don't think that they're given the respect that they deserve for that. So they get stressed out. And I think that's where you see a lot of the problem within the healthcare system, right? So right now I'm waiting for a call back from a doctor I popped a stitch and I got a tube coming out of my body. It's really cute. But I've been waiting since 8 a.m.
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay.
I would show you, but it would be a little,
Yeah.
But, I've been waiting for a call back since 8 a.m. and right now it's after 3. And so that can get frustrating, right? But I think what I would tell patients is to just understand what your healthcare professionals have gone through, right? When we were all sitting on our sofas watching the TikToks or the YouTubes or, doctors and nurses were busting their ass trying to, pardon my language, trying to help those of us who had the virus, not knowing if it was going to end their life or someone else's. They didn't know. And they're exhausted. They were working, 48-hour shifts. And then you guys come in there, complaining that they're 15 minutes late for your appointment. Stop. Just everybody give everybody a break. And I really feel that if you can remember that, the system is overwhelmed right now.
It really is. And you're right. And some of the negativity and even violence that's been perpetrated against caregivers is unconscionable. I mean, these are people that are really dedicated. And, there are a lot of problems in our health system. I agree with you that I don't see the solution as, Medicare for all. I don't think I think that locks in a flawed system, frankly.
Yeah.
There are a lot of problems that we've got to deal with, but it's not the people. They're system issues that we can correct. The people that I know in healthcare are dedicated and really want to do the right thing. And the reason they're burning out is because the system is not aligned with their values anymore. And so we've got some work to do. There's no question. But gosh, it isn't the people. Stop pointing fingers and thinking, evil doctor, evil executive. It really isn't. It's the system. Yeah.
It is the system, and it's too bad. So everybody, just give everybody a break,
Yeah,
just
that's the best way to say it.
think about how you would like to be treated in that moment. And listen, I was in the hospital for a few days just, not too long ago, which is why I have a tube coming out of me. It's fine. We don't need to talk about it. But I just remember some of the nurses would come in just exasperated.
Yeah.
And I would let them just sit and talk because remember, they're human beings too.
Yeah.
And I know that you're not feeling good. And sometimes we get grumpy and we snap at people when you're not feeling good. But just take a moment and realize that, yes, you don't feel good, but this nurse is going to be with you right now for 5 to 10 minutes. Give that human being a break.
Yeah.
Give them a break because they were trying to save the world when you were watching TikTok.
I bet they loved coming to see you, is my guess. The nurses...
Well, it was a hot mess. Listen, I got in trouble so much so that they had to put an alarm on my bed so I wouldn't get up.
Yeah, you are hard to keep in the room, I'm sure.
I am. Well, I know where they hide the ice cream.
You're a very dangerous woman. You are.
I am. See, when you're in the hospital for so long, you know the ins and outs of where the stuff is. So you go in, you could borrow a soda from someone.
Amy, you are a delight to talk to, and you've been very generous with your time. I am so excited that I got a chance to meet you and to talk with you. It's a highlight of my year, and I just I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on and talk with me. And I've learned a bunch today and validated some things that I thought, and maybe give some second thoughts to some other notions that I had based on what you've shared with us today. So just thank you so much for being you, and keep fighting the good fight. And if there's any way that I can help down the road, or tomorrow, let me know, and I'll do my very best. I really appreciate you and the company you keep, as in Dr. Stroman. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun, and you are just a delight. I appreciate you, and anyone who rounded with spinal cord injury patients, you deserve your own gold medal because we are not an easy group.
Well, life can be challenging sometimes for all of us, but hopefully we all give each other a break, as you suggest. I think that's the best possible solution to that problem. And again, Amy Van Dyken, 6 gold medals to her credit. An amazing woman, an amazing story, and I think we're going to wrap it up there. Until next time, bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Groves Connection, your connection to the inside story on healthcare, featuring in-depth interviews with those who know. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, give us a 5-star review to keep the connection going, and hit the subscribe button to be sure you never miss a beat. The Groves Connection is produced by Dr. Robert Groves. Original music, editing, and creative direction provided by Alden Groves. Production support, content guidance, courtesy of Janae Sharp and Elizabeth Barrett. Thank you for listening. The professional ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast are mine and do not reflect those of any current or past employers. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time on The Groves Connection.